Hello, this is Wmpyr, here to talk a little bit about George Dillman. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing this is because back in the day, my instructor's instructor, which was Professor Remy Presas, Professor Remy Presas. At first, I had no idea who he was, and I knew nothing about Filipino martial arts. But after I started learning Filipino martial arts. It was from the Professor Remy Presas system. So it was modern Arnis. And a couple of years later, I started seeing in Black Belt magazine, Inside Kung Fu magazine, and all the martial arts magazine at the time, because that was kind of like our internet back then. I started seeing that Professor Remy Presas was doing seminars. He was doing tours all over the world, and he had two travel buddies doing seminars together. So they seemed very, very close. One of them was Professor Wally Jay, and the other one was Professor George Dillman. So the three of them, the three professors, were traveling together, doing seminars together. It was like a 3-for-1 kind of thing. I'm not sure of the details because I never took the seminar, but I know that it was advertised, and I know they were doing this together. And so you would think that they spent an awful lot of time together, and that they were close in some way, shape, or form. All three of them, and yeah, all three of them, I think, they have insane stories. They are professors of the martial arts. And just the other day, I stumbled upon a Professor Wally Jay video where he still looked much, much younger than I had seen, and he was talking about his system. And when I saw it, so much of that reminded me of what my instructor did, and taught us. Even though my instructor, his main style was Kuksu Wan, I saw a lot of Professor Wally Jay influence in there. And then when I see Professor Remy Presas' video, I see a lot of Professor Wally Jay influence in there as well. And for the first time, I really sat down and saw Professor Wally Jay's techniques, and it is a complete system from what I could tell. Now, I am not very familiar with that kind of methodology, with the stand-up jiu-jitsu kind of method of controlling a person. Because for me, if you ask me about my stand-up grappling or stand-up jiu-jitsu kind of thing, it's grappling. So, I mean, it's pretty much what you see in MMA, Muay Thai kickboxing. That is what I went towards, because it was easy to understand, easy to learn, easy to know the application. And so that is the path that I took. I didn't take this other path, but from what I can tell, once again, it looks very, very complete. It really impressed me in a certain way. Now, application, I have no idea. Like, I didn't put in the time to figure it out, so I could not tell you, But from what I gather, it covers everything from starting off to in the middle of it, to taking them down to the ground, bringing them back up. I mean, it's full circle. It's really impressive. And could that help me in my martial arts? I believe so, 100%. So anyway, I just want to say, and it kind of, if you do like Aikido, I think it could help you tremendously. And if you do kind of like me, like you come from, let's say, more of a MMA background, learning something like this, could it help you? I think if you're open-minded, for sure, you know, but if not, it's better you just stick with MMA, because then you like that way you would be like, I know how to apply this, I know how to use this kind of thing, you know. But because it is a really different world. Okay, so now back to Professor George Dillman. So Professor Wally Jay brought in the small circle jiu-jitsu. So and then Professor Remy Presas, of course, brought in the modern Arnis. And then Professor George Dillman brought in the Kyusho Jitsu. Kyusho just means like pressure point, and Jitsu is skill. So, you know, pressure point fighting. And his is obviously mainly like karate based, right? And when you look at what he does, could I see that helping me in my martial arts? Absolutely, absolutely. Did I see it in Professor Remy Presas' stuff, or, you know, Professor Wally Jay's stuff? What the video that I saw with Professor Wally Jay could have been before he met or before he started getting close to Professor George Dillman. So I really didn't see anything in there. And Professor Remy Presas, I do remember him mentioning, or through my instructor mentioning karate and stuff. But do I really remember seeing any kind of karate type of stuff or pressure point stuff? Not really. Maybe a little bit integrated with the standing joint locks. And to me, that is definitely where it crosses over. All three systems, from Professor Remy Presas, Professor Wally Jay, and Professor George Dillman, all three cross into the fact where you're doing the joint lock. So in Professor Remy Presas, it's the lock flow stuff. And then, of course, Professor Wally Jay does standing joint locks, standing joint manipulation, control type stuff. And then, of course, with the Professor George Dillman, it's a karate. It comes from karate, which everyone thinks is a striking art, but he is very strong to mention that the pressure points included in there is more actually of a grappling art. So that is where they basically, all three of them are doing similar stuff. Okay, so in that sense, they overlap, and I can see that it would be in there. Now, that being said, I know today Professor George Dillman has an incredibly bad reputation, incredibly. And from what I gather, you know, is it tragic in a sense that it was unjust, like someone did it to him, like painted him black? I don't think so. I think it's tragic in a sense that it's self-induced, from what I gather. I don't know. Okay, I don't know the guy. I don't, so I think it's a similar case to Steven Seagal sensei, in a sense that you reap what you sow. So they kind of both, Steven Seagal sensei and Professor George Dillman, they did it to themselves. I don't know. Okay, that's just my guess. Okay. So I just know that both of their reputations are very bad. You get kind of a strange feeling from the two, okay? And so if I ever met them in person, I'm not going to be running up to them, could you please teach me some stuff? No, I think it's better just avoid, right? So, I hope best of luck to both of them. I have no ill feelings, or I don't wish them bad or anything like that. What I do know about both of them, Steven Seagal sensei and Professor George Dillman, is that I have studied some of their martial arts stuff, especially when they were younger, and I learned valuable things. Whether it was, I remember Steven Seagal sensei saying in an interview where it was his music CD of his films. I don't know who did the music, but it was a CD that had the Above the Law music, Hard to Kill, I think even Marked for Death, Out for Justice in there. And in the very end, after the music stuff, then it had the interview. And yeah, I love that CD. And in the interview, they asked him, like, what do you think about those people that are wanting to, they're inspired by you and they want to go to Hollywood or something like that. And he said something like, if they're inspired by me and they want to do martial arts, great, they're on the right path. If they want to go to Hollywood, they should think twice. That's what he said, in that interview. And I thought that was amazing advice. To this day, I think it's amazing advice. So, yeah, I mean, it might be one of those cases. Now, once again, I don't know the guy, but it might be one of those cases, where it's like, do as I say and don't do as I do kind of thing, which is sad, is especially someone who is supposed to be walking the martial path, right? And we kind of see that with a lot of famous martial artists, martial arts celebrities, that kind of happens to a lot of them, So then in that case, once again, I have to say, you got to separate. And the things that they're doing that's bad, learn from it. Don't do it. Don't follow that. Okay. And don't be like that. Right. That's super important. So like if you hear, that this guy abuses women or something like that, then you make sure not to be that way. Okay. Now, we don't know him personally. We don't know these people unless you are there. You really don't. So you can't judge. We would be judging a book by its cover. But at the same time, we're not stupid either. So if you're hearing this kind of stuff, just make sure that you don't do that. You don't fall into that, right? But then the good stuff that they're saying, pay attention to that, okay? Pay attention to the good stuff they're saying. And the stuff that's weird or doesn't make sense or there's something not right, then make sure that you don't do that stuff. Make sure you don't fall into that, right? So that is the lesson there, okay? So when I look back at Professor George Dillman's stuff, and I have studied his stuff way back in the day because I was like, oh, he's traveling with my teacher's teacher, Professor Remy Presas. Maybe I should give him some credit. Maybe I should look into his stuff. And I did. And when I did, I found amazing stuff from the guy. Now, some of the stuff, he did say some controversial things, but even back then, and I could tell the guy likes to tell a good story, and he was really, really good at doing it, and maybe gets carried away with that sometimes, and maybe got carried too far away, and also his business, not protocol, but his business model was maybe too cutthroat, and he got obsessed with numbers. So, and he forgot that it's not about the amount of money that you're bringing in, but it's the people that you're dealing with. Maybe this is just speculation. I don't know. So, excuse me. So if that is the case, maybe that's what turned into a bad reputation. And in these cases, these people have very strong minds, very strong power of, how do you call it, manifestation, where, their destiny and their making stuff can happen. So, maybe it crossed a little too far to the point where what my buddy Sensei Rick would say, they drank their own Kool-Aid way too hard. They started believing their own hype way too much, which I could see could happen with a lot of celebrity martial artists. Okay, so that is and you know what? If I was in their position, the same thing could have happened to me. I would definitely be in the same spot where I am susceptible to that. So, once again, it's very easy for me to judge over here on the other side, without being in that spot. So, we just have to be careful what we say. But it is unfortunate in that sense, if any of that is true. Once again, this is just speculation. But what I am saying is his older stuff, I don't know about the no-touch knockout stuff like that, but his older stuff did seem to make a ton of sense to me. And when I was doing, like, for example, MMA training and BJJ training, I thought that if I were to get like an arm bar or something, and if I were to grab, like what he would say, the pressure points, and did the arm bar that way, that it would be more effective than just doing an arm bar normal, or just hugging the arm and just going back like that. But if I actually controlled the wrist, pressing onto the pressure points, and did the arm bar, I definitely feel that it would be way more effective. Same with a double leg takedown or any of that. So if you study his stuff, it's the pressure points. Sometimes it's not just pressure. I mean, he goes into acupuncture and stuff, but it really, honestly, to me, felt like leverage points, And if you are able to tax the nervous system with a slight pain, like people say, the pain, it's in real life adrenaline, you're not going to feel it. But if you're able to tax it, so that would be like George St. Pierre recently revealed, like when he had to fight BJ Penn, he had to overload the guy's nervous system in order to bring down his reflexes, because the guy was so amazing that BJ Penn had amazing reflexes. He had to bring it down by overloading the guy's, information, right? The amount of stuff that the guy was seeing and stuff. So he had to put in a lot of fakes and feints, right? Fakes is feints in martial arts, in boxing. So much in the same way, if I can tax the nervous system by hitting those pressure points, then when I do the arm bar, that it would make that more effective. You know what I mean? So I kind of see it the same way. So just that alone, maybe not, but combined, and that was one of the things that I learned from the Russian martial arts system, is you combine your attacks. You don't just attack, a joint in one way. You twist, and then, there's multiple directions. And Professor Wally Jay also talks about that two-way direction, and sometimes he combines the two-way with another two-way. So those are all ways that we could increase our leverage against the opponent. So that's kind of the way that I saw his pressure point stuff, and it always stuck to me. Even my later years of training in BJJ, I never forgot that, and I tried to incorporate that. A lot of times I was just struggling to save my butt against someone just bigger, just squashing me, because I was not very good at BJJ. But the times when I was able to, I would try to think about stuff like that, So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.